I am someone that is on the Letterboxd app, frankly, too much. I think in this last year, I watched about 100 movies on my watch list and added 600. So not a great ratio for finishing that out. On one of my forays into the list tab, I saw the Criterion challenge. I figured this challenge could kind of serve as a fun tool, not just for me to make a Letterboxd list, but for me to also knock out some heavy hitters and hopefully also discover something. Looking back on the list, because I was rearranging it as I went, I made like a time capsule of my year. And this has been a busy year for me. I just kind of wanted to make a video to kind of talk about this time capsule effect of this thing and somewhat talk about some of the movies that are like big standouts. I would be really glad if someone watched this video and at the end of it thought, you know what, I would love to do this for this year. I think I could watch a movie a week. I enjoy a Criterion release, or maybe even if you don't know what Criterion is, no matter where you're at in movie fandom or whatever, you could enjoy this. Let's just jump into chapter 1. Chapter 1 is kind of defined by a couple of failed attempts at other Letterboxd scavenger hunts, a Japanuary challenge that was just watch 10 movies from Japan in January. I just barely eked out the 10 movies. And even then, 2 of them I watched February 1st. So I really didn't do it. Also figured, well, what if I did this every month and this was just a way for me to watch more foreign films? So February, let's do Frankuary for sure. Watch some French film. And so after those, I decided that I would just stick to the one. This chapter I think also is defined by sitting in my bed watching a movie as I had time. My first discovery, I would say, from this was When We Were Kings. It was just one of those things that you finish it and you're just like, I've got to talk to somebody about this. This is so like incredible. For it being such a specific event, it becomes really expansive in just capturing the personality of Ali. I mean, all the footage of him is just entertaining in itself. If you've ever watched an interview clip with Muhammad Ali and thought that he was like charming or funny or whichever, I mean, you could watch it for him alone. It was like watching a good sports movie, but it's real and it has like fantastic music coming from these live performances. The next film I want to talk about is Wild Strawberries. It's kind of like Christmas caroling it, where Scrooge in his present day is watching his past events play out. The same thing is happening here. Towards the end of the year, Jay Kelly came out. I guess somewhat spoilers for Jay Kelly. It does the same thing. He has flashbacks to different points in his life, and he is present in his present day form, but he's just an observer. It really, in both movies, gives the main actor a really good opportunity to kind of just react and just be expressive and give like the wisdom of hindsight without having to talk to somebody about it necessarily or be blatantly obvious. It was a really kind of fun and kind of rewarding moment to, at the end of the year, have seen a reference to a movie that I had watched and discovered through this challenge. Chapter 2 is unique in that it's the only chapter that's really centered on an event. I realized that I could do like a Mickey 17 build-up. The 2 movies that I had on the list worked as a good sampler for the kind of 2 versions of Bong Joon-ho, where you have Okja, which is this like environmental, well, we need to like protect our planet and the creatures on it and stuff. And that kind of environmentalism is something that I saw when I watched The Host around the same time. The other one I watched was Memories of Murder, which is kind of the grittier version of them. My tie to life kind of for this chapter is showing this clip of the drop kicks in this movie to anyone that would sit through it. It is so over the top and caught me so off guard. Just off the first kick, let alone the other two. I think it kind of ties to the humor that Bong Joon-ho uses in his film. Even in this movie, which also has very difficult things to watch, every now and then I would just get like kind of brought back to earth by what is essentially slapstick comedy in a gritty detective movie. And it really set me up for the slapstick in Mickey 17 and the environmentalism in Mickey 17. It was just a really good sort of palate preparer. Chapter 3 is defined pretty heavily by the end of my last semester of college. I was working on my capstone film. One of the directors on a capstone that I was filming, he had been talking about Chungking Express, and it happened to be on the list. I remember going to set the next weekend, so excited to have something to talk about with him. That excitement of going to set is a pretty big signifier when I look back at the list of just that work that I was doing. The other like definer of this chapter is the month that I had staying with my dad between me graduating and me going to work in Philadelphia for the summer. The highs of Chungking Express and the busyness and the excitement to suddenly just kind of sitting around. In this stretch, I watched My Dinner with Andre. The weird thing about it is that despite how simple it is in its filmmaking, just kind of watching these two talk for a little while, I was kind of locked in on. As someone who struggles conversationally and kind of has trouble keeping the momentum in conversation, watching this thing was like low-key a crash course. I was nervous about going to work with a big group of new people, and then kind of watching this and just kind of being like, you know what, man, like you really can talk about anything. It's gonna be all right. The last hurrah of this chapter, or shall I say the last waltz of it. Yeah, it's the last waltz. It looks incredible. This is like a band who I didn't even realize how much of their music I had heard. It kind of does become just this review of like greats. If you're a fan of kind of any of those like surrounding artists, for sure check out a couple clips, if not the whole thing. I will say too, this guy, the way he's hitting his verse is like insane. And that's all that I'm going to say about it. And we're going to move on. Chapter 4 is kind of the summer chapter. I'm working in Philly and so busy, but I had front desk / office shifts where I was just watching silent films and subtitled films that I could watch either really quietly or with no sound at all. I was able to see a silent classic, Safety Last, another slapsticky silent star, but kind of in a different vein to Chaplin or Keaton. Chaplin's tramp character kind of follows the comedic trope of the Mr. Magoo. He's kind of doing all these antics, and you know, the anvil is falling on everyone else's head and he's just dodging it. But Harold Lloyd does the opposite. He is bumbling around, falling about, and everyone else is dropping the anvils on him. It's kind of the like this guy can't catch a break type of movie. It made him really endearing watching it, where you're just kind of like, man, I would love if this guy could just get a win. Another life signifier in this chapter is After Hours, and not so much for the quest of this movie, but for the tone. This guy has a day job. You see that there are these really slow moments, but that in this one short period of time for him, nothing is as easy as he thinks it should be. And kind of that insane busyness to sudden drop off in such short times really was like a definer of this chapter. I feel funny comparing what I was doing to what he's doing in After Hours, but I felt a kinship to Griffin Dunne and to the people of New York. So anyways, chapter 5 is the travel chapter. This chapter does have some of the first with people watches where I subjected my family to Bowling for Columbine and Young Mr. Lincoln. High and low. I enjoy Kurosawa's movies, but I feel like they weren't clicking with me as much as I felt like they should be, or as much as they seemed to be clicking with everyone else. And this one clicked. The way that the camera is used and blocking is done in the first half, masterclass. The action of the second half is just so exciting. The way the story unfolds and the pacing of it, I was hooked. Bowling for Columbine, especially, is one that, like, unfortunately just continues to be so relevant. Michael Moore is someone that he can be hit or miss for people, or he can come off as obnoxious. For how politically charged they are, it kind of makes it a dangerous family watch, or it feels like it. I really enjoy him and his style and kind of how involved he is in his documentaries. And as I see more of his films, I continue to enjoy them, and I continue to want to see more. The Player, it didn't really blow me away, except for this opening scene. It is a feat to behold. This 8-minute long oneer of this, like, carefully choreographed opening scene where you're meeting the players. Another reference moment, also from Jay Kelly. Jay Kelly opens in the same way. It does one long oneer. It was another, whoa, I recognize that. I saw that this year for this challenge. You know, once again, I was in a yellow shirt pointing to my TV. And back on my documentary talk is me talking about hoop dreams. I believe I said When We Were Kings was expansive. This takes it to a whole other level. To see someone stick with a project for so long without entirely knowing, you know, what they're going to have at the end of it. And what they have at the end of it is fantastic. You're kind of seeing harsh realities infect the hope that these kids have. It's pretty tragic. Chapter 6, this is like a chapter of highs and lows, not to be confused with the chapter that has high and low. I'm back at my dad's, kind of grappling with not being a student anymore. This thing that has been so in the distance of this kind of life after academics, suddenly you're in it. And suddenly the realities of the job market are hitting. There are times when it's really difficult to watch films like Wanda or All of Us Strangers and to get just bummed out. On the flip side, I finished Great Dictator with this incredibly uplifted spirit. Chapter 7 is the Chicago chapter. I'm in this apartment, continuing to be on, like, really kind of precarious footing in new ground. Having films like Ikiru or Perfect Days that kind of continue to give me life is beautiful moments. Having these kind of reminders to kind of enjoy what's in front of you. This is also another, like, sitting in my bed watching a movie chapter. This time, I can picture my room evolving. Lost in America, I watch on a sleeping bag with a gift pillow that I could fit in my suitcase. But then by the time I get to, like, the last row, you know, I've got a mattress. In the last couple of movies, I've got a bed frame to put it in. The last movie I watched for this challenge, Grey Gardens. I'm reflecting on this challenge, and I'm reflecting on the year, but I'm also looking forward to, you know, wanting to create film. Like, I'm not going to make Grey Gardens, but if I could make something that communicated so well with so little, that's the goal. You're seeing these people who, despite having this kind of grand wealth and these grand connections, they, you know, live alone in this house that is falling apart, constantly bickering with each other and putting each other down. And it really becomes an interesting portrait of kind of using this really focused story to tell a broader one. Yeah, also, you know, watch documentary now. I do want to give an in memoriam to 2 films that didn't make it. A big decider of the order of my watching was what was available on streaming services as they all shuffled around each month. And then unfortunately, it got to the last 2 weeks and I had to face the bitter truth, rest in peace, to Watermelon Woman and Crumb. Watermelon Woman was a watch list oldie. Crumb was a possible new discovery. Watermelon Woman, though, is on next year's list. That one will be getting watched. So this is really an in memoriam for Crumb. You did nothing wrong. Maybe I'll watch you someday. I truly don't know. No blame to you. That's on me. and my 700 movie watch list. Thank you for watching. Seriously, if you watched this far, I really appreciate it. I love being on this app. I love making a list. And that was really all that I was wanting out of this. And was met with this kind of surprise capsule of a pretty major year of my life. Something that I enjoyed enough that I'm doing it again this year. I do just want to urge anyone who's watched this far, do the challenge. I've linked the list and the prompts and everything in the description below. Go find good movies, watch ones you've been meaning to get to, and then think back on them at the end. I know I will be.